I can be really straight about it. Let's proceed. Seeing the time, it is 6:09. I'm calling, well, no, we're starting the meeting from our strategic planning session. So we've already been in session, but we are going to actually stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to
the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for you.
And we are officially opening public comment at 6:09. Is there any public comment?
I didn't have any online when I checked previously, but I also don't have a Mr. Claudel online. He told to switch meetings.
He was.
Yes.
He was.
You want to
Okay.
give him a quick call, Sarah?
Yeah, I can give him a quick call.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, just so that people realize that it's the first meeting since the elections, and so that's a reorganization. So shortly we'll be getting to that, but in the absence of that reorganization, the superintendent facilitates the meeting. I'm always grateful when I get to pass the torch. But we have, this evening, because we do have a public hearing on donations, so I'm on page 2 of the agenda. And there are some donations that the board is requested to accept. White Sylvania Trust, $2,000 for Sandwich Central School, which they are annually generously provide that. And then Mr. and Mrs. Broussard, in the amount of $50 for the middle high school after prom. And so we are asking that the board make a motion to accept these donations with gratitude.
So moved. Second.
Is any discussion?
Nope.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Excellent. And thank you to our donors. We also have the acceptance of donations in the amount of $64,011.91 for the Interlake School District for the Charles G. Burroughs Memorial Athletic Field lights. So we have had some significant donations. Most significant, Meredith Village Savings Bank has donated $50,000.
Oh, goodness.
$50,000.
Wow.
And the Jones family, Jessica Kahn and Netflix, in the amount of $11,571.91. Identity Coffee, $40. New Hampshire Broadband bought a banner for $2,000. Jim Mikeland, our moderator, has donated $50, and Mr. and Mrs. Patton in the amount of $350. So that brings us to a donation this evening for the board to accept of $61,011.91.
So moved.
All right, with
With
gratitude.
enormous gratitude.
Yeah.
Excellent. It was
Meredith
there a second?
Village
I'll
Savings-
second it.
Okay, excellent. Any discussion?
There is.
Okay, all those in favor, please say.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. And now this officially opens the public hearing. The superintendent is calling the public hearing open at 6:12. So this is an opportunity for the public, because we are over $20,000 in this group of donations. Should the public have any concerns about using funds for field lights, this is an opportunity to express that. So that's part of, it's actually an RSA and it's written into your policy. So public hearing is open at 6:12. Are there any members of the public that would like to comment on the donations? Hearing none, seeing none. Mr. Parsons?
Just refreshing my screen.
Nothing.
Okay, so hearing none, I'm going to close the public hearing at 6:13. And so hearing nothing, the board can feel confident to continue moving forward, collecting donations for the field lights. Reorganization of the school board. So at this time, if I would accept nominations for the chair of the Interlake School Board.
I'd like to nominate Charlie Hanson. Second.
Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, a vote for Mr. Hanson as chair of the Interlake School Board.
Aye.
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 Unanimous.
I'm abstaining. Doesn't matter, Charlie, you're in anyways.
And now I can turn the meeting over to the incredible
Thank
Mr.
you.
Hanson.
Superintendent Moriarty, you have to completely blind. Well, she has it. She's found her call.
All right, so picking up where the superintendent left off, nominations for vice chair.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
And nominate Mark Billings?
Very good. Is there a second? Seconded by Nancy Starmer. Any other nominations? Sorry, Caleb. Hearing none. All those in favor of Mark Billings, say aye.
Aye.
I did. Next up, secretary of the school board, nominations. Yes, Mark.
Nominate Duncan.
Duncan, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Nancy. Any other nominations? Seeing none. All those in favor of Duncan, say aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
So school board committees, representative negotiations. So I know in the document that went out on this that, you know, we could talk about it tonight, but I actually think I can go ahead and let you know my thoughts of what we're gonna do this year based on some feedback I've gotten from different folks. So the existing committees, I'm gonna leave them as they are. So we have another year of consistent membership. The two newer committees, the strategic planning committee and the
Negotiations.
negotiation, because we are coming into negotiations. So strategic planning, I would like to have Ed, Nancy, and Siobhan, and that will be coordinating with the superintendent. And then the negotiation team, we still have pretty much intact, but instead of me being a member, I'm gonna step back because as chair of the board, I can be an ex officio member. And I've talked to Jim. Jim is willing to participate in that. So does anybody have any questions on those appointments or?
That all sounds very prudent to me.
So what is the negotiation committee?
It's you, Nancy, Jim, and then I'll be there as chair.
Thank you. Perfect.
Great. And school board meeting schedule.
I don't know how to turn that off. That's my text, but you all should know that my text is, dear Nana,
So it's,
I'm participating in my
standard
school's
schedule.
readathon. Can you donate today? It would be really helpful. I don't know how to turn this off, but yeah.
so it's following
No, I
the same process. We
Right.
did put the 5:30 start on public.
Yeah, so I guess the big thing is the schedule's the same as this year essentially. We do have the 5:30 start time, so we can do the non-public up front, and then if we go over on non-public, we'll have a hard stop at 6 o'clock to start our regular meeting, and then wrap up any non-public business at the end. Does that still work for everybody?
And the
Yeah,
only,
my only comment would be, we want residents, parents, et cetera, to see us at work as a board. By doing what we're doing and moving it to the beginning, how many of them are gonna walk out right after that?
Well, they aren't in non-public.
You say the
and
5:30?
they won't come till 6.
They won't come
I
till-
think we'll keep messaging for
Yeah,
people
that's, I
that,
was trying to get
Yeah.
separation of
Yeah.
those two.
and just, not that November's right around the corner, but November 10th is a Monday, because November 11th, Veterans Day, is a Tuesday, so we put the November meeting on Monday.
Great, thank you very much, Mary.
I have a question, actually, I think about the schedule, just to keep in mind in the future. Were the Wednesday ones, recently somewhat new? Like, did they change from a Tuesday on the original schedule to then become Wednesdays?
Are you thinking about the public hearings and the annual meeting?
Right,
That has,
It flip flops.
it has,
I'm just,
it can change, but we are within a certain window.
Yeah.
so I was just asking because I had signed myself up as a facilitator for parent ed. It happens at night.
Okay.
And so I generally am like, stay away from giving me.
Yeah.
And I was like, put me on Wednesday because I'm always school board on Tuesday, so.
So we
Now
can
I
look
know
at,
to
we can,
look for
they were tentative for the public hearing and the annual school district meeting. We can see about Tuesday. There's no reason that it can't be a Tuesday.
I was more so asking just like procedurally, so in the future, I know this part is a little wishy-washy, and so to just avoid Tuesday, Wednesdays, or I don't know.
It gets a little wishy-washy in the sense because you're counting between, like, there's RSA, the guide, like you have to have.
Notification.
Town meetings and.
Yeah,
It can technically happen on like any of the days.
could potentially, but there's a window. So if we know from you to stay away, like if you say, don't do it on a Wednesday, Thursday, we could look, can we get within the window on the other days?
No, I'm taking this as, I'm just going to make sure that when that time of the year comes around, I let my co-facilitator know I may not be able to.
Yeah. And we
That's
should have that
easier.
fairly set, like in the fall. I mean, we've got tentative dates on here right now that I think probably will fall within our windows. But we'll firm that up in the fall.
I had a quick similar question. I don't know if it's the same, but basically just asking about, are we just making sure, like, as we move next year, we're not doing it on like town meeting
Yeah.
night? Yeah, same thing,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah.
That's why the school district meeting used to be the same week as town meeting, and so
Okay.
it sometimes wouldn't go. Now it's the week before.
Gotcha.
And we'll make sure we don't conflict with vacation week too.
Right, right.
That actually.
So stay tuned.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's subject to
That's why the
change,
word
one
tentative
form or
is
another.
on that section, but, yeah, okay.
Great, thank you very much. So, Mr. Terrio, the moment we've been waiting for, let us know what's going on.
So yesterday, the math team competed at the state math meet. During the regular, like, I don't know if they're qualifying events or not, but we finished first. And then at the state meet, we ended up placing third in our division of small schools. That was a huge accomplishment for us as a public school, and it was an excellent representation of what Interlakes can do in the math field.
So you're saying that this was including private schools as well?
Yes.
Excellent.
So for our division, we placed third for the state.
Yes. Business teacher Whitney Sullivan is happy to announce Aiden Lentine and Keegan Swanker, Thea Wright, and Bella Kimball all participated in an online personal finance assessment. They earned a combined high score high enough to place us in the top 5 of the state. They will be heading to Concord on Wednesday, April 2nd to compete in a live challenge against the other top score earners, including teams from Bow, Londonderry, Newfound, Raymond, and Winnicott. This past weekend, the Lakerbots competed down at Western New England in Springfield. We won the Industrial Design Award. This was an engineering and design award that showcased our robot. And the Lakerbots will be heading to UNH this weekend for our second qualifying competition.
Nice, excellent.
Q3 progress reports went out recently. So we're in the swing of things in the second semester. And then recently we've been developing the portrait of a graduate. Students have filled out multiple surveys over the past year to kind of create a draft for this. And the whole student body has had the chance to review the draft and give feedback. Recently, the draft was approved by student council, and it was passed off to the graphics classes so that they can create a physical design for the portrait of a graduate.
Nice. It's awesome. Nothing like a good team effort. Thank you, Caleb. Next up, we have the Rotary Youth Exchange Student 2025-2026.
So you have the information in your packet. It is only privy to the board because it is private student information. Should the board want to discuss the individual, that would be in non-public, and it does start on your white pages, page 9. And I think we might have Dean.
Yeah, okay, I wasn't going to see present.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, we have our Rotary representative here. That
Yeah, he
Does
was.
anybody feel the need to go into non-public to discuss this?
Yeah.
No. All right,
I would move to accept this Rotary Exchange student.
thank you, Duncan. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded. Thank you. Any other discussion about the Rotary student? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you much.
Thank you to Rotary and to Dean for all the coordination.
Next, we have the PAX foreign exchange student. There's somewhere for the Rotary concept for 2025, 2026.
And so you have information, this is a new group for us. So I did include a fact sheet about them. There are schools in New Hampshire that have successfully partnered with them. And this is a student also from Spain. And it is a student who was with a Interlakes family over the summer, and they would like to host a student for the school year. And so certainly if you want to go into specifics, that would be a non-public. But based on our vetting, this seems like a good organization for us to partner with.
Yes, Duncan.
I would move to accept the PAX foreign exchange student for 2025-26.
Okay, is there a second? Seconded by Ms. Starr. Any other questions or discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 Mary, am I looking at the right page, 16?
21.
Yep.
Oh, Rotary.
That's,
It's got a
Pa-
red
PAX goes to
border
23
at the
March.
bottom.
got it?
All right, next up, we have a request to waive school board policy, bidding policy and procedures, and approve Eckert and Johnson as mechanical contractor for boiler replacement and HVAC project.
So in your packet, if you go to the white pages, page 24, I did write a memo asking that the board consider waiving policy DJD so that we could begin work sooner than later. We're concerned about costs increasing as well as supply chain issues as a result of increasing costs. So Mr. Swanker and I are requesting that the board waive the policy so that we could assign Eckhart and Johnson as the mechanical contractor for the project and get ourselves teed up to get the work done.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. Is there discussion or questions?
Discussion?
Yes, Mark?
Does that, I mean, you have a task, you found somebody that can do it, and now you're asking us to say, you don't have to look any further?
Correct.
It's a little bit more than that, Mark. These are people that we've done other projects with.
Mhm.
We've known about them, and the budget figures we got was from them. So these are interesting times for projects like this with bidding and everything, and with the tariff situation and other uncertainties. So at this point, we have enough of a relationship with them where I think we can actually realize some savings off of that budget number. And we have a much greater likelihood of getting this project done in a timely fashion. So
You understand, Mike?
I definitely do, and I raised the same question, but I've been in positions where if you take the hardcore line with go to bid, it can blow up in your face. And we're at such a time, there's enough uncertainty. I think this is a time that warrants bypassing the policy.
So if we bypass the policy, when does the work start? Like in a week or two, or in like a month and a half?
So the work can't start until after July 1. However, it can be, things can be organized so that,
And drill down on the actual final cost.
Yeah.
and things can be, the
Or
company might order things and be teed up.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the question that I was gonna ask, I think you've asked, this is a group that's done projects for us in the past, so we know their record, we know
They did the
worked well with us.
HVAC work
Great.
through the ESSER project.
Yeah.
Right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Got it. We're all good.
Thank you.
Okay, we have request to waive school board policy BN, disposition of books, supplies, and equipment.
So if you look, I did provide a memo, page 27. This is a specialized printer we bought maybe about 4 or 5 or so years ago. Unfortunately, the skill set to use it is much more complicated than we anticipated. The software updates, the goal was it would help to create signage with Braille and so forth that we could, put throughout the school district, as well as be incorporated into hopefully some of our curriculum, but it's just cumbersome to use. It's unfortunate. And we would like to be able to, it's a specific product, and being able to kind of target an audience for it is probably more likely for us to get a better resale than trying to go through the process of putting this in the paper and seeing if anybody, has an interest. I think really being able to target the market that uses it is a better approach for us.
And I'm sorry, could you tell us what markets use these?
So maybe Mr. Swanker can help with that.
Yeah, it's designed for a sign company to mass produce signs. It needs to be in operation daily and to show a return on it. And if one of the issues we had is you can't just like let it sit and not use it and decide we're going to use it for a project in a month or something. The entire printer head goes bad when the ink isn't flowing daily. So it would be for a sign company that is going to produce product and sell it like daily. And at the end, when that head goes bad, they consider it part of the business. Versus we had to realize that, oh, you have to use this every day, and we can't keep buying the head for it if we try to let it sit. Because that's definitely what happened.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Do you have a motion yet?
No.
I'll move it.
Okay, thank you, Nancy.
Second.
Seconded by Mark. Other questions or comments? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we're up to the Interlakes Middle High School Portrait of a Graduate. Dr. Downing is here tonight to enlighten us on this. Caleb has already referenced.
Yes, he gave some of the student perspective, and will answer any questions that you might have for him. So, I'll reference that, even though I think you've all seen it before. So I'm gonna pass down is the proposed draft of our Portrait of a Graduate, which is a requirement, or is a highly recommended element of schools by NEAS, the New England Association of Schools and Colleges. As you know, 2 years ago, we had our collaborative conference, which is where they come to the school and give us feedback about everything that we're doing. And we had very few priority areas that they outlined, but one of them was that they thought it was important that we had a Portrait of a Graduate, which has kind of been a movement over the last 10 years or so, that schools have moved more toward like, what is the profile of what we want our graduates to look like? So we've spent the last few years kind of gathering information from as many stakeholders as possible. We surveyed students, we surveyed families, parents. I sent out surveys to over 300 local businesses and organizations. We tried to get as much feedback from stakeholders as possible about what they felt this should look like, what were things we should prioritize. And the draft that you're holding is kind of the fruit of those efforts. This is a draft that was created with all of that feedback that I just shared, all of the survey results. The staff took all of the feedback from the students, from the parents, from the community, and kind of came up with a draft. Originally 2 drafts. We brought those 2 drafts to the student body. The student body immediately ixnayed one and said, no thanks, we don't think that's us. We listened, we took it out and brought the one forward that they had a little bit more zeal for. And the student council then got together, the 7 through 12 student council, not the 9 through 12, but all of this student council members to vote to bring this forward as kind of our official draft. And with that said, it's still very much a draft, because we realize that perhaps you all may have some feedback you want to give us in regard to what we want this to look like. And I am hopeful to get more stakeholder feedback, particularly from local businesses and families, as the yield from those surveys was not as high as I was hoping for. So I'm hoping now that we do have a draft, and once we have some of those physical mock-ups that Caleb referred to from our graphics, sending that out might give a little bit more, interest to people to speak up about whether or not they think that's indicative of a Laker.
And
So-
we can bring it to the community events, so
Great,
it ties
yeah.
very nicely.
Yeah, and the finished product, if you will, is not what I want to make sure people are aware of. It's not necessarily just words and a graphic, but it's a full-on implementation of these skills as a part of what we're providing explicit instruction as well as feedback, and even feedback in the form of a grade or some sort of reporting out, very similar to what we already do now with our personal competencies, which are, you know, our students and our families and everybody are intimately familiar with at this point. We've been looking at this for a very long time. And those 6 non-negotiable skills that you see in the draft, we're hopeful are going to kind of replace these. But we have some work to do with some of those 6 skills, because those 6 non-negotiables have to be something that teachers can assess. So we also have to, as an educational team, make sure that we're gonna be able to set up some explicit markers for how we're gonna do that and do it well. So that's just kind of an update on where we are with Portrait of a Graduate. We've made a lot of progress in a short amount of time, so I'm hopeful that NEASC is gonna give us a little bit of accommodation for that when they visit in a couple weeks.
This is excellent.
Thank you.
Would you say the buy-in by the student body has been, maybe it's just detailed, has been pretty good?
Yeah, we had a large assembly with everybody, and everybody got a chance to look at it, and then there was feedback from that, definitely from everybody, and then the student council from middle and high school, like I said, got to look at it and kind of narrow everything down there. And so students have definitely had a big say in what's happening with this.
And it is, I think, the very next thing that I'm going to speak about. I think I tried to use a carrot because I do think this is a lot of educator speak, the Portrait of a Graduate piece for kids, but it is very, very much important. As I've said to them many times, like, I want their voices heard. I want this to be I want them to be able to own it when they look on the wall and they see this everywhere, that this was something that they had a stake in. And what we did was we also, I would say simultaneously, which also piqued up a lot of interest, was discuss the mascot, because that's, while it is not a Portrait of a Graduate thing, it's very much a school spirit thing. It's very much a visual representation of who we are as Lakers. So we kind of started to weave that conversation into our Portrait of a Graduate discussion as well. And that got a lot of traction. We got a lot of kids talking about that and sending me tons of awesome ideas. So we're kind of working on those things simultaneously, and hopeful that we might have something that we might be able to weave into this. If not, we may make changes later if we do finally get to the point that as a student body, we have a mascot.
Siobhan?
I have another question for you. You mentioned the assembly and then the student council. In your opinion, did students talk about the Portrait of a Graduate outside of those formal, like?
I didn't hear a lot of like conversation necessarily about it, but I also didn't hear from like a whole lot of people in general. Like in like the groups like that I hang out with all the time, there wasn't too much talk about it, but people definitely had some thoughts about it, like with feedback like right after and whatnot. But I haven't seen it as like a giant discussion point, but there has been a little more talk about like mascot here and there.
Charlie?
Yes, Mr. Billings.
Dr. Downing, do you include any graduated students in the survey?
Great question. I apologize, the survey for Portrait of a Graduate,
Yes.
there's potential for there to be a lot of overlap there in regard to we send it out to all parents, we send it out to all, like I said, local businesses. Like, I would say there is a lot of
Do you
overlap.
get those kids that are 2 years, 3 years, 4 years out of our school system?
We are working for the strategic planning process on a survey that I think will also kind of tie back. So Dr. Downing, Mr. Connell, school counseling director, Linda Otten, Dean of Learning, and Alicia White, registrar. We've been working on trying to design something that we can use social media to try to get the group of students who are 10 years or less graduated, so that we get their feedback. And I think there'll be lots of connections back to this.
So you can attack it from both the want and the
Yes.
need.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's, like I said, I'm really hopeful, because I did feel I'm hoping for a more robust response from community members particularly local businesses. There's one piece of the the purpose of the Portrait of a Graduate is to have something that the entire community buys into, not just the teachers and the kids at school, but what does Innisfree want in an employee once they have left our hands in regard to all of these skills and these dispositions that we're talking about. So the weigh-in on that is important, and we just unfortunately didn't get as much of a response from that as I would have liked. I'd like the pie to be a little bit bigger.
Is this something we should like talk more about even in our community? Are we like this something?
Yes.
It'll be part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we
for sure.
definitely will get connected.
Right.
And I think the visual is just a really helpful way.
Mhm.
Yes, which, as I said, we needed to get the verbiage and the content down before we could start with the visual, and I wanted to be really intentional about the fact that I think a lot of schools rush ahead and mock up a visual and say, here's our portrait of a graduate. Is so much more than that, because the implementation plan behind it and all of the behind the work scenes has to be really intentional to have this kind of weave into the fiber of who we are as Lakers. And I think the would say the finished product is, I don't know if you guys remember this from a few years ago, where we decided to go away from the individual schools having all those different pieces and just have this. I would say that the long-term goal is that we have a vision of a graduate for our entire district. Right now, we're working on our portrait for the middle high school, but eventually to weave these skills in pre-K all the way up to 12, and what we isolate as a district as the things that we feel are the most
And
important.
that might be, from the strategic planning standpoint, like a 5-year.
Oh yeah, this
Some
is
of it is
time.
the change and some of the things, in terms of focus at the elementary level, to try to do what many districts are calling a portrait of a learner. From again, we've got some change and things elementary level that it just, the timing wasn't right to do that, but that could be a 5-year goal to merge it.
And that backward design is something that a lot of places have done, and I think it's something that would be feasible. And
It makes sense. I mean,
Oh,
you don't
100%.
need a kindergartner telling you what the portrait of a graduate's gonna be like.
right, but but talking about scaffolding and building skills from
Yeah.
that age up,
Yeah.
it is something we can definitely work on from a backward design perspective. And this is something that should be fluid, just like everything else. So it will be up for for program evaluation, if you will, consistently to make sure that changes are made as it's needed. So.
And NASC will be visiting.
NEASC will be here at Interlakes Middle High School the 14th, 15th, and 16th of April. There is a chunk of time that they'll be meeting with the board, or that they've requested to meet with the board and with the superintendent to talk about our priority areas that were identified in the collaborative visit 2 years ago. And they'll meet with a variety of stakeholder groups, mostly students and teachers this time. They got the parent perspective and the global perspective with their first visit. And then what they do is they just share out a report on our progress on what their priorities area to see if we meet all of those benchmarks.
Do we know
And
what day they want to meet?
I'll work on that and we'll get that out to you and work with Sarah and getting that nailed down.
Great. Awesome. Well, Dr. D, that's a lot of information. I can tell, I'm confused. Did you already talk about the mascot? You integrated into that, or do
Well,
you have more specifics?
Like I said, I was trying to use that as a carrot to get kids into the portrait of a graduate piece, and it has worked. So we've got there's a little bit of dual conversation happening there. It was shared with me. We've talked to staff a lot. We've talked to students a lot about the mascot. I've got some old ideas that Mr. Swanker had brought up from some mock-ups that had been brought years ago that didn't really get much traction. And I think where we are at this juncture is that we need to have a committee set up to look at this, because I do think that it was shared with me last time, alumni should be involved in this discussion. And that was not a group I anticipated would, I guess, maybe want involvement, but I heard that. So we are going to try to have some alumni and graduates from Interlakes come to the table to share some perspectives about that, because I think there's a little fear, right? Creating a mascot's a big deal, a fear of losing the Laker identity. However, we're not going to stray from Laker. We're looking for a physical manifestation of that and what it looks like.
So you didn't, I'm sorry I don't mean to interrupt, but you didn't just decide maybe we should look at the mascot in order to get people involved in this conversation. There was an impetus to change the mascot.
We've never had one.
So it's been a long, ongoing desire.
Okay.
Yes, and I'll be honest, when Mary and the board brought me on board 4 years ago, one of the things was building school spirit and building, you know, that zest for who we are and wanting to, and we've done a great deal of work in that area. But one thing that would be great, and the kids are always coming, like when we go somewhere else and like the mascot comes
Right.
out, the kids, you know, I'm always getting the elbow, like, we gotta do, what should we do? And that's been the, you know, it isn't as if we were the, you know, if we were the Meredith Cougars or if we were the Interlakes Cougars, it's quick, right? Like that's an easy thing to manifest. We really have to decide what embodies a Laker in that physical piece. So we're having a lot of philosophical conversations. But no, this has been something that's been brewing for a while. I just had the time to give it more attention this year than I've had.
So you can
most in
tell
the
me,
past.
I didn't even miss the fact that we should go fast. Look at that, you know, I know Sandwich has a fox and, you know, they're.
Yes,
It
yes.
never strike me that
Thank you.
the high school.
Sorry, go ahead, Mark.
I
Sorry.
was gonna say, don't limit yourself to something that breathes. If you look around the sports world nationally,
Yeah.
you'll find an enormous number of teams, like the Storm
Mhm.
or something else. So
I will tell you, the kids have sent me some incredible ideas that I think if we can manifest some of these ideas, it'll be great. It'll be great. I really think the excitement coming from the kids, I can feel it, like in those conversations, to be getting random emails on Saturdays and Sundays from kids about, I was thinking about the mascot and what and lots of fun off the cuff conversations with students. So we are going to bring that to committee, and obviously that'll involve athletics as well, because that has some implications.
Siobhan?
Potentially stupid question. Are you talking about like literally a mascot, like a costume, or are you talking about like a different design
Picture, yeah.
mascot?
Well, kind of two different things, because we've got our emblem or our seal. I guess this could probably be comparable to another school having a seal, but often schools have some sort of physical manifestation of that mascot, which could be an act. It could be, you know, I shouldn't use an example because I don't want to plant any seeds in people's heads. But if we had, I'll do it just because they're right next door. If we were the Bears, you know, like Newfound is the Bears, a bear would probably be incorporated into that emblem somehow, just because that's just often, particularly for middle high schools, how that works. So it'd be a little bit of both, I think. But I don't think this will go anywhere because this is a big part of our identity. So.
Thank you, Dr. D. I will say that if we get to the point where it's finalized, we do have something that a human being needs to wear at the first rollout. Mark Billings.
Charlie was worried that.
I appreciate it.
Mascots. I've done more embarrassing things. The mascot's not going to be Bigfoot, Nancy, so no. Great. Do you have anything else, Dr. D? Or you good?
No, I think.
Yeah, Charlie.
Go ahead, Bob.
Hey, so what Principal Downing's talking about, I think this ties very, very tightly into and Mark has already kind of alluded to it as far as bringing in graduates from so on and so forth from a couple of years out. Like, I think this is intimately tied to the strategic planning. You know, what we're talking about is, you know, the portrait of a graduate, excuse me, you know, if I understand the concept correctly, really is the end state of the strategic plan kind of thing. What is the product that the district produces, which is, I don't know, it sounds impersonal, but I'll use that phrase anyways. So I really think that this effort should be tied to the strategic planning. And questions for Principal Downing, how easy do you see it being to iterate or move left or right on the portrait of a graduate, assuming that, you know, hey, as we move forward with the strategic planning session and all this kind of thing, hey, we need to move this portion of the plan left or right. Well, that would mean that our final stopping point for a graduate moves left or right as well. So what are your, like, based on what you've seen so far, how easy is it to adjust that portrait?
Oh, like I said, this is very much in draft form, so I would say that's very easy. It needs to be fluid, but if I'm picking up what you're putting down about obviously bringing this to strategic planning and more people having input on what this is going to look like. One piece that I'm not willing to compromise is student voice and student agency in this process, because at the end of the day, this is very much theirs. So as long as the adults at the table aren't taking that over, I think we can support changes that reflect who we want to be as a community.
And our goal is to have students involved in the strategic planning process.
Yes.
Absolutely. I think that also makes room for and helps with the discussion about bringing in, you know, parent and family input into both the plan as well as the portrait of a graduate. And I think so that might be something where we can bring in a couple of folks. I think the risk associated with, hey, this is separate, is, hey, if this is what a graduate looks like and this is where our strategic plan is taking us, you're going to create some cognitive dissonance. So again, I think these are intimately tied, and not suggesting at all that we should remove student or anybody else's input, but I think they're tied at the hip.
Yeah, I agree. And at our first strategic, I apologize.
No.
Just when we met for strategic planning last year, I kind of rolled this out. So that first strategic planning meeting that we had at the middle high school, that was the night that we got a lot of public feedback about this. I shared a lot of the same information I shared tonight about what it was. And that was when the surveys were deployed pretty quickly after that meeting. So these strategic planning meetings will hopefully be our second bite at the apple in regard to public and stakeholder feedback in the process.
Go ahead, Darren.
I think I would just ask a question that I'm not sure if this is what Ed meant, but this is what I thought was part of what he was saying. How dynamic is this portrait over time? Is this a document that you anticipate being able to change and respond to the strategic plan and the strategic vision of the communities as an ongoing process? And is this a living document, or is this sort of a static thing that is a reflection of what the learners and the community are saying right now?
Perfect and very articulate, Duncan. Thank you. Awesome.
I think the spirit of this is that it should be something that is dynamic, that we are continually revisiting.
Good.
We do get stuck as schools, right?
Correct.
Like, how long do these things kick around? And it isn't purposeful, right? It's just a matter of
There's a
you
lot
do
to do.
things, yeah, but learners are different this year than they were even
Sure.
3 years ago. So yes, dynamic is what we would love. Which obviously is going to require some sort of process, which we would weave into that implementation plan about how often do we revisit this to make sure it's still aligned with who we are.
Good.
Great.
And I think NEASC would say, here to that,
Good.
because that's exactly what they want. They don't want the stagnant. That's the purpose. So.
Thank you, Dr. D. Next up, right now, we have graduation date set for June 14th, 2025.
So we are requesting that
Proposed.
the board consider this evening approving June 14th as the graduation date for the class of 2025. This will allow families to plan and make preparations to celebrate.
Same venue?
Same venue, overlooking
Don't
our
get any better.
overlooking our beautiful field.
And we have had one whack at the indoor, and it was also beautiful.
Correct.
So either way, we'll be in great shape.
So June 14th is an established day, rain or shine.
Father's Day weekend.
So,
It was Father's Day weekend last year.
so we need a motion to approve this for Mary.
That
Motion made.
Thank you, Mr. Cordell. Is there a second?
I'll
Second.
second.
Seconded by Siobhan.
Meet you.
Thank you. All those in favor, say aye.
All right.
Opposed? June 14 it is. Had the families know.
I will do.
Great, thank you very much. Next up, we have teacher nominations. I had a correspondence with somebody. We're gonna take this up in non-public. Okay. We can talk about that one then. Then we have administrator nominations.
So as presented, unless the board would like to go into non-public.
Is there any member of the board who would like to go into non-public for the administrator nominations? Seeing none?
I would move
Thank
the
you.
nominations as presented.
Thank you, Duncan. Seconded by Nancy. Any other discussion? Seeing no hands or other indications, all those in favor say aye.
Right.
Opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up, we have an information, oh, this is an action item, right, I forgot about that. Memorandum of agreement between the participating school districts in the Lakes Region Consortium, intensive special education needs and contracted related service providers. This is something Mary's been working on for the last several months, and I think it's pretty exciting myself.
So on page 33, you have a memorandum of agreement. This is for all Lakes Region public schools to consider participating in. And all it really is saying is that we want to come together, work together on trying to find ways to better address needs for students with intensive special education, learning differences. And that is our goal, to be collectively trying to find a collective solution. And you also find attached, I did on behalf, there was a timing issue, so I, for congressionally directed spending. So that was open until March 7th. And so I was able to put something in for consideration of $1.3 million to help get an executive director to help build some regional opportunities, as well as offset costs to staff. We don't have, we won't know if this is approved until sometime probably in October. And we may even know sooner if they decide not to continue to move it down the pipeline. But really what is being requested of the board this evening is that you approve the signing of the memorandum of agreement by the chair of the school board on behalf of the Angel Lake School Board and myself.
So just to be clear, this consortium that Mary's asking us to approve tonight is literally the first formal step for us and other boards in the region just to come together to get our director of student services together to see if we can come up with something that makes sense both financially and for our needs, because we are not alone in our special ed situation, and there's a lot of interest there to try to be collaborative. The whole scholarship, not scholarship, but the grant,
Congressionally directed spending.
right, which is basically a grant, that's a corollary to it, but it has nothing to do with this. And if this goes nowhere, I guess we don't need any money.
But just to reiterate what Charlie's saying, there's the memo of understanding or agreement doesn't obligate us.
Correct.
There's no funding for it.
Nope.
There's no responsibility that is binding in terms of any fiduciary.
Other than saying we want to all work together.
Right.
And I think what it
And
does is it provides documentation that as a, within the Lakes region, the following school board and school districts have agreed and taken a public stand to say we want to work together on trying to find solutions. But there
But
is
to be clear,
no
any
commitment.
commitment would be brought to the board
Correct,
as a question to
correct.
debate and discuss.
Which is expressly outlined in
Right.
the
And all these other districts already signed what you're asking.
So what you're, those
no?
other districts signed for the congressionally directed spending.
Okay.
I did get, Winnisquam Regional School District unanimously approved signing the memorandum of agreement tonight, so I did receive that. The other, again, just for information, there was a letter in order to put in for the congressionally directed spending. A letter was circulated asking school board chairs to say that they saw this as a need, as well as superintendents and directors of special education.
Were there any schools that were invited and declined?
For the letter for the congressionally directed spending, some boards chairs were not comfortable without having time for a school board meeting. And again, it was really just expressing that this is a need. That's why we put the letter in here. So different boards chairs had different comfort levels with that. And it was a quick turnaround to say, you know what, this might be worth at least trying.
Basically, this is just asking us to share data with other districts and.
Yes, and I will be facilitating that group. So
And you already have a pretty, you meet regularly with
We have a
the
great
same group of
working,
people, you discuss things informally, and this just directs a subset of those conversations about special ed and particularly the challenges that we're all facing.
correct. And I think it allows us, for those districts that sign on, just to say collectively as a group, we're acknowledging that this is a collective challenge. And by, wanting to work together, our hope is that we can find a solution that best meets the needs of the students that we are all trying very hard to serve well.
I think there's a lot of wisdom in this.
Yeah, I do too. Thank you for following up on this, Mary. This is, what are the other districts that are?
So
looking-
it's the entire Lakes region, it's on out
Okay,
to. So
great.
that encompasses from the other side of the lake all the way, I think we found is our most westerly.
No, Franklin.
Oh, Franklin's more
Yeah, you
westerly.
got Newfound, Franklin,
Yes.
Oh, I
Winnisquam,
didn't see the
Valley.
list. Where's the
Merrimack
list?
Valley.
Merrimack Valley,
There-
yes.
Orange
there's
Center
some
also.
signs once
So,
you get past.
We're a good sized area.
As an unrelated comment, Meredith has finally
There.
hired a town manager.
Which is wonderful.
Yes, except for Franklin.
Yes.
Franklin.
Yeah, now you're starting to see the
Okay.
different.
Right, so we have a.
I see, gotcha.
So you did not get a motion?
Would anybody like to make a motion to approve this?
I do.
I'll make it.
Siobhan? Moved by Nancy. All right, any other discussion? Seeing, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, motion carries. Old business, the 2025-2026 school year calendar.
Yes, so you saw the calendar last month. We always try to put that out with a month in between. And so looking for the board to approve the calendar. And I am confirming that the February break would not conflict if the annual school district meeting was on March.
Excellent. Any questions about the school year calendar? Would somebody like to make a motion to approve the school year calendar? Thank you, Mark.
Motion made.
Seconded by Duncan. Any other questions or comments on the school year calendar? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Very good.
Just a quick comment, it was
Yes.
actually Craig Baker, one of the things, had, indicated like putting school board meeting dates on the school calendar. So we, based on when he gave that, we started doing that. So I think that's a really, again, just another nice way that it's all kind of there for folks.
Great. Thank you, Mary.
Because this page is on every parent's refrigerator
Yes.
in
Yes.
the district.
Yes.
So
Next up, the legislative meeting update. So Ed, did you get my email
I
or
don't
Mary's
believe
email that
it might be in there, and I've not been good about reading email.
Well, we have a day and time in April to meet, if that works for you. If you could just reply, and if it is, our goal is to invite all our local reps, which includes 2 Carroll County and 3 Belknap County reps, 2 from Meredith, 1 from Center Harbor. And we're gonna invite Tim Lang, who's our senator for both, all towns as well, to have a meet and greet, kind of like what part of the conversation was earlier, where, I think there's a lot of this, some of the stuff that's going on in Concord right now, if you actually had them here to say, wow, you're really doing this? I think you get a lot of that, quite honestly. So just check it out, Ed, and let me know. Mary, can you resend that
I will,
to Ed, please?
Absolutely.
And we'll finalize that.
I'm looking through it now. It's here.
Okay. Does the date work for you?
you're muted.
You hit mute, Ed.
Sorry, unfortunately, no. I'll be back here in Louisiana. If you want to do it in the conference room, I can certainly join remotely. But
Okay. All right, let's plan on that then. And any other school board members who can make it that day, Mary will
I think that was-
finalize this.
April 18th, right, is what the day you're talking about?
It's written down.
Okay,
Yeah.
correct.
Pretty
That's
sure.
that's what's in the note. Yep.
I'll circulate that.
Please do, yeah.
Okay, we're filing the minutes. February 5th, bond and budget public hearing minutes.
Motion to move.
Thank you. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Lot. Any questions, comments, or edits by any board members? Hearing or seeing none, all those in favor of the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Next up, sorry,
Just thank you to Sarah Briggs. That was a lot to do.
Yes. Thank you, Sarah.
next up, we have the February 11th regular school board meeting minutes.
Move to accept the minutes.
Thank you, Duncan.
Second.
Second by Mr. Billings. Any questions on the February 11th minutes or edits? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Wait, sorry. Was I remote or was, oh yeah, no, now I remember it. Okay. Yep. Carry on.
You having a senior moment?
I remember there was, yeah, I was. I remember there was one where I wanted to be remote, but then I couldn't do it. So I just was thinking through.
Thank you. We're up to current bills payable, general operating expenses. Mrs. Fowler.
Thank you. In your packet on page 74 starts the manifest. 7 to 20.
Mayor, 3020.
30/20. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Any questions for Ashley on the manifest 3020? I'd entertain a motion to approve it then. Thank you, Nancy. Is there a second? Seconded by Duncan. Any other questions, comments, or thoughts? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Enrollment report. Mrs. Moriarty.
So enrollment report is in your packet, and there is no substantial change from last month. We are down 2 students.
Thank you. Any questions on the enrollment report for the superintendent? Gail, do you have any questions?
I don't have the type of it, but like, how many high school students do we have?
So
I'm
we
just
have,
curious.
for high school, we have 287 students. And I'm sorry, Caleb, we had one of the slides for you.
Yeah, that's fine.
287
Right.
students.
Thank you. We talked about it at robotics and some of the things that we present, so I just wanted a number.
Perfect.
Thank you.
I apologize, that's that you didn't have an agenda.
And this is where that would be 9, 12.
That is 9 through 12. Yep, 9 through 12 is 287.
You need
7 and 8 is 141. 7 and 8 is 141, and then 7, 12 is 428.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That's
All right. Next up, we have staffing update.
very much. I just, so you have your staffing update. It is page 79. And I do just want to make sure the board is aware, all of our teaching positions are filled except for one, which is the speech language pathologist. So just a recollection that speech language pathologist is a position we were not able to fill. It was a late resignation. Last year was in the summer, the staff member relocated out of state. And so we have contracted services to support that, but all of our teaching positions are and have been filled.
Right. And Mary, can you clarify, because Ed's saying, we haven't had trouble filling teaching positions.
No.
We've had trouble filling paraeducator
Yes,
positions.
and what I would say, the position we've had trouble filling is a speech and language pathologist. There is, unfortunately, there's private marketplaces for them to work. And those contractors then, when school districts can't fill, you're kind of in a tough spot. So one of the parts of that memorandum of agreement that you authorized signing tonight is we are going to look at contracted services as a Lakes region. One of our goals is to ask related service providers for contracted services to come together and to at least say, it's a challenge for us to hire positions if you're hiring people away, or it's also difficult in one district, they're paying this for the contracted service, and in that district, they're paying that. And, there's a free marketplace, but I think having a collective conversation that's a challenge. But speech language pathologists there's just not enough out there for the amount of need.
Where do
problem
they
of
get the
mixed
kind of
economy.
debris they need?
So that's a very specialized, it's a master's level, program certification. It's a licensing. It's not, so they are licensed, I think it's through the Department of Health and Human Services. They could be working at hospitals. There's a lot of different settings for people with that background. But that is the one position we have struggled with. There are other districts that have gone all year without teaching positions filled.
Right.
I will say an area we have struggled is if we have somebody who needs to be on a long-term medical leave. Maybe that's paternity or maternity leave, or maybe had surgery. Trying to find substitutes, it's been difficult. We've actually leaned on our own staff to take on overages, so that we had people with a background, with that content area to be able to do teaching.
Anything else on that? Hearing none, we're gonna move right on to the financial report year to date. Ms. Dollop, if you would enlighten us even further beyond the written document you provide us every single month.
Thank you. So the last page of the packet, page 80, is your financial report. We are in a good position. We are starting to look at kind of that year-end encumbrance list that we typically present to you.
Which we would expect that at the May meeting, correct?
Yes, proposed, and then you will vote in June.
Right.
Yes,
So give us a month to
to think about.
cogitate on it.
Yeah,
Ruminate.
and I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Any questions for Ms. Dollop?
What was the word you just used?
Cogitate?
Right.
I may have just made that up.
No, good use of the word. Good use of the word.
That's what I used to do to butter back in the
The
day.
active thinking.
You get a triple letter word score for that one, Charlie.
All right, moving on. Mr. Parsons, do we have anybody from the public that is trying to reach us electronically?
No.
And then, what time is it? 7:11. 7:11, I'm gonna close. I'm sorry, is there anybody else? Would you like to say anything?
Thank you, Debbie.
I'm closing public comment at 7:11.
May I just
Yes.
reference that I did push out to the board. So we have the Interlake School District comment, which is open for public comment. We did receive a comment in writing about some legislation. So I pushed it out to the board for you to look at it more maybe as correspondence. So I don't know if the board wants to do anything with that, but I want to make sure the public is aware that that was received and was shared with the school board.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And I think that is by definition correspondence. So, yeah, we got it.
Yes, and I forget the individuals, but thank you very much. This has been quite the year for education belts down in Concord, to say the least. All right, so 7:11, we close public comment. So I would entertain a motion to go into non-public session per RSA 91A32C, which includes matters which, if discussed in public, would likely affect adversely the reputation of any person other than a member of this board, unless such a person requests an open meeting. So moved by Nancy.
Seconded.
Yes,
Yes.
Mr. Twaddell. I'm sorry.
Yes.
No, please, you've got me going.
And I'll say Mr. Hanson. Mr. Hanson.
Yes.
Mr. Billies.
Yes.
Ms. Starmer.
Yes.
Ms. Conley.
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Excellent. We are now in non-public session. So thank you, folks, for hanging around.
I figure Text.
I'm there.
So I'm always there.
I hope that offered a little.
Yes, no, thank you.
So my wife is in Washington DC,
Lisa,
the sixth grade. So,
Yeah, normally one of the students, one of my students usually grabs her from dance.
Yeah.
And babysits for a little bit and she wasn't.
well, this is great.
So- So
I actually had
actually,
dinner in
yeah,
there.
Charlie Femia went and picked her up from dance and dropped her here for me, so. Yeah, it was a group effort tonight.
Where's
Oh, she
She's
does
with
Jack
Ursula.
with Duncan's, yeah, so. Needs one of these.
There you go.
I have plenty of extras.
My daughter's in Harry's office
Thank you.
watching her iPad and
Eating dinner?
yeah, having dinner and FaceTime with her grandmother. I don't know, but I'm looking at this thing.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Because Thomas and Eve were both in the Washington.
it's also me.
Yeah.
Alright, so what
We were getting him ready and I was like, oh my God, I'm child care because I thought about this.
Yeah.
We should probably,
Sure. Mr. Twidell, can you hear me?
Earth to end.
There we go. So I think what we need to do, since we're going to non-public and this is a public meeting, is I think we should open up the old meeting from earlier today that you were on. Do you have that in your email or in your calendar from Sarah Briggs?
I'm sorry, Mark, I lost you a little bit in some of the background conversation. Please say that again.
Yes, I'm just gonna close the door. Let me stop recording as well. No one else needs to hear this. Stop recording.